The room was quiet, save for the faint rustle of fabric as I sat at the edge of an antique wooden table. Before me lay a small velvet box, its surface worn from decades of careful handling. My fingers trembled slightly as I lifted the lid, revealing the signet ring nestled inside. A heavy band of gold etched with the emblem of my family, passed down through generations. It was more than a piece of jewelry. It was a symbol of authority, a mantle I had inherited but never quite felt ready to wear. I held the ring in my palm, its cool weight grounding me in the moment. The emblem, a lion encircled by an intricate wreath, seemed to pulse with the stories of those who had worn it before. Leaders, visionaries, and women whose names were etched into the annals of our family history. Yet as I traced the delicate engravings, a shadow crept across my heart. Did I truly deserve this legacy? Was I worthy of the power entrusted to me? Or was I simply a placeholder until someone more capable emerged? The silence of the room amplified the questions in my mind. Every expectation tied to this ring pressed down on me, an invisible weight heavier than gold. I felt the cold air against my skin, but inside a storm brewed, a tempest of doubt and responsibility. The ring was not just a symbol. It was a tangible reminder of the lineage I was bound to uphold, a lineage that demanded more than I felt I could give. Memories surfaced unbidden. Conversations with elders who spoke of duty and honor, whispers of past struggles and triumphs. Their voices seemed to echo through the walls, urging me to step into a role I had hesitated to claim. But hesitation lingered, rooted deep in the fear that I might falter, that I might tarnish the legacy rather than elevate it. The weight of their achievements felt like a mountain I was unprepared to climb. I placed the ring against my cheek, its metal cool and unyielding. It was a relic, yes, but also a promise to continue a story that was bigger than myself. Yet the promise felt like a chain, binding me to expectations that left little room for error or weakness. I questioned whether the authority I was to claim was truly mine or merely a shadow cast by those who came before. The room seemed to close in around me, the walls narrowing as the pressure mounted. I wanted to honor the past, to make my ancestors proud, but the path ahead was shrouded in uncertainty. Could I live up to the ideals the ring represented? Or was I destined to disappoint, caught between reverence for tradition and the desire to forge my own identity? As I stared at the ring, an ache settled in my chest, a blend of reverence and fear. The symbol of authority was both a beacon and a burden. It promised power but demanded sacrifice. I felt the paradox keenly, the tension between the privilege of inheritance and the loneliness of responsibility. The signet ring was more than an object. It was a legacy etched in gold and time. Its presence in my hand sparked a tumult of emotions: pride, fear, hope, and doubt intertwining in a complex dance. I sensed that accepting this authority would require more than a simple gesture. It would demand an internal reckoning, a confrontation with the insecurities that threatened to undermine me. I recalled the faces of those who had worn the ring before me, strong women whose courage had shaped the family's history. Their shadows loomed large, their footsteps echoing with unyielding confidence. Yet I felt like an imposter standing at the threshold, unsure if I could match their strength or had the right to claim the power they had wielded. The ring's cold metal was grounding, but also a reminder of the distance between expectation and reality. I wondered if the authority it symbolized was a mantle I could bear without breaking. The legacy was a torch passed through generations, but the flame flickered in the uncertain winds of my self-doubt. In the stillness, I grappled with the duality of the ring's meaning. It was a bridge to the past and a gateway to the future. Yet I feared crossing it would mean losing myself in the weight of history. The pressure to honor tradition threatened to silence the voice within me that longed to lead on my own terms. As the minutes stretched, I felt a quiet resolve begin to form beneath the surface of my doubts. The weight of the signet ring was undeniable, but so too was the call to embrace the authority it represented. The legacy was not just a burden. It was an opportunity to carry forward a story of resilience and leadership. Still, the question lingered. Could I rise to meet the expectations woven into this heirloom, or would I falter under the gaze of those who had come before? The uncertainty was a heavy cloak, but beneath it, a spark of determination flickered, fragile yet persistent. I lifted the ring from my palm and held it up to the light filtering through the window. The gold glinted softly, its surface bearing the marks of time and use. It was a tangible connection to the women who had shaped our family's legacy, a silent testament to their strength and vision. Yet I felt the weight of their presence as both an inspiration and a challenge. The ring was a symbol of authority inherited, but authority was more than lineage. It was the courage to step into a role fraught with expectation and uncertainty. I wondered if I possessed that courage, or if the fear of failing would keep me bound to the shadows. The room remained still as I contemplated the signet ring, its significance unfolding in the quiet spaces of my heart. I realized that the authority it represented was not a gift freely given but a responsibility willingly accepted. To wear the ring was to accept the weight of history and the unknown path ahead. In that moment, I sensed that the journey to embody this inherited authority would be neither simple nor swift. It would require confronting my doubts, embracing the pressure, and finding a way to honor the past without losing myself. The legacy was a heavy crown, but one I was being called to carry. I closed the velvet box gently, the ring resting once more within its cradle. The quiet room held its breath as I sat back, the silence now filled with the unspoken promise of a journey just beginning. The signet ring awaited, a symbol of authority ready to be claimed, but the question remained. Was I ready to claim it? The signet ring lay on the table before me, its polished surface catching the subtle light in the room, but my gaze drifted beyond the tangible to the invisible shadows it cast. In the solitude of that quiet space, memories surfaced, moments when I hesitated, when I stepped back instead of forward, weighed down by the looming presence of those who had come before me. Faces of predecessors, their accomplishments etched in history, seemed to hover just beyond reach, their successes towering like ancient pillars that threatened to overshadow my own fragile voice. I remembered the conversations, the stories told in hushed tones about a grandmother who had forged paths in a world that often refused to see her worth, a mother who had carried the family name with fierce determination. Their shadows stretched long and wide, shaping the contours of my own journey even before I had taken my first steps. I felt caught in a delicate tension, not just between past and present, but between the desire to honor their legacy and the need to assert my own identity. I wrestled with the fear that claiming the inherited authority might erase who I was beneath the weight of tradition. Would embracing the ring mean surrendering my individuality? Could the authority I was meant to embody become a cage, binding me to a role scripted by others rather than one I could author myself? The thought unsettled me deeply, stirring an internal conflict that pulsed beneath the surface like a restless tide. There were times I found myself shrinking, retreating into silence when my voice longed to be heard. The stories of my their strength felt simultaneously inspiring and intimidating. Their courage was a beacon, yet it also cast long shadows that threatened to eclipse my own light. I questioned if I could ever step fully into the space they had carved out, or if I was destined to be a mere echo in the halls of our family's history. As I traced the outline of the ring on the table, I confronted the tension between legacy and selfhood. It was a complex dance on one hand, an inheritance rich with meaning and responsibility. On the other, a yearning to break free from the confines of expectation and craft a path uniquely mine. The fear of losing my voice to the chorus of those who came before was a quiet but persistent companion. Yet, amid the swirling doubts, a fragile realization began to take shape. I was not alone in this struggle. The women who had preceded me had faced similar crossroads, wrestling with the balance between honoring their heritage and asserting their own identities. Their stories were not just tales of unbroken strength, but also of vulnerability, moments when they too questioned whether they could live up to the legacy they bore. This shared experience offered a glimmer of solace. The tension I felt was not a sign of weakness but part of the complex inheritance of authority passed down through the generations. It was a reminder that the journey was not about erasing the past or myself, but about finding harmony between the two. Legacy and identity were not opposing forces but parts of a whole, each giving shape and depth to the other. I thought of the ring again, no longer just as a symbol of inherited power, but as a mirror reflecting the ongoing conversation between history and self. It was a reminder that authority was not static. It evolved with each bearer who chose to embrace it with authenticity. The ring's weight was still there, but now it felt less like a chain and more like a challenge, to honor the past without losing the freedom to define the future. The internal battle did not ease overnight. Doubt still lingered, and the fear of being swallowed by the magnitude of legacy remained palpable. But within that struggle I sensed a quiet strength emerging. The courage to hold space for both reverence and rebellion. To acknowledge the achievements of my foremothers while daring to chart my own course. I reflected on the moments when I had faltered. Not as failures but as necessary pauses in a journey of self-discovery. Those hesitations were part of the process. Echoes of the delicate balance between stepping into inherited authority and preserving the essence of who I was becoming. The shadows of the past were not meant to silence me, but to teach me resilience. The room felt charged with this newfound understanding. The ring, once a heavy symbol of duty, now seemed to pulse with potential. An invitation to engage with legacy in a way that was both respectful and transformative. It was a call to embrace complexity, to hold contradictory feelings without surrendering to them. I imagined the women who had worn the ring before me, their lives marked by triumph and struggle alike. Their shadows, once intimidating, now appeared as a lineage of courage that included space for doubt and growth. I was part of that continuum, not as a mere inheritor but as an active participant in shaping what authority meant in my time. The tension between legacy and identity was not a problem to solve but a dynamic to live with, a rhythm to find. I felt the stirrings of a resolve to engage with this tension courageously, to claim the authority I had inherited without losing the voice that was uniquely mine. It was a delicate balance, but one I was beginning to accept as essential to authentic leadership. As I sat in the quiet, the signet ring rested on the table like a silent witness to my inner struggle. It was a reminder that the path ahead would not be straightforward, that the shadows of those who came before would always be present. But with that presence came strength, a legacy of resilience that I could draw upon as I stepped forward. I reached out and touched the ring lightly, feeling its cool surface beneath my fingertips. The authority it symbolized was no longer just a burden or an expectation. It was a living thread connecting me to a history of women who had navigated similar fears and doubts. Their courage was a silent chorus urging me to find my own voice, to embrace the complexity of my inheritance with honesty and grace. In that moment, I began to understand that embracing inherited authority did not mean surrendering my individuality. Rather, it meant weaving my story into the tapestry of legacy, adding new colors and textures to a fabric that was rich and evolving. The ring was a symbol of continuity, but also of transformation. A promise that authority could be redefined through each bearer's courage to lead authentically. The room held a stillness that felt charged with possibility. I knew the struggle between legacy and identity would continue, that moments of doubt would return. But I also sensed that the journey was becoming mine to claim, with all its complexities and contradictions. The signet ring remained on the table, its emblem catching the light in a way that seemed to acknowledge the tension within me. It was no longer just a relic of the past but a symbol of the ongoing dialogue between history and selfhood. A dialogue I was beginning to embrace with quiet determination. The signet ring rested on the table, its golden surface gleaming softly in the muted light. But now it felt different. Less a weight pressing down, more a beacon guiding me toward a new understanding. The struggle that had gripped me began to loosen, replaced by a quiet shift in perspective. This ring was not a chain binding me to the past. It was a bridge, a symbol of strength and continuity that I could shape on my own terms. I reached out and lifted it, feeling the cool metal settle against my skin as I slid it onto my finger. The fit was snug, grounding me in a tangible connection to the legacy I carried. Yet it was no longer a symbol of obligation alone. It was an emblem of possibility, a reminder that authority inherited could be redefined through the courage to claim it authentically. The room around me seemed to breathe with this new energy. The shadows of doubt that had once clouded my mind began to retreat, replaced by a flicker of confidence that I had not anticipated. I realized that honoring my heritage did not require me to become a replica of those who came before, but invited me to engage their legacy with honesty and personal strength. I thought back to the women whose stories had filled my reflections, their determination, their resilience. They had not been flawless. Their journeys were marked by challenges and uncertainties, just as mine was. The ring was a symbol of their courage, but also a testament to their humanity. In embracing it, I was accepting not just their triumphs but their imperfections, and in doing so I could forge a path that was both respectful and uniquely mine. My hand traced the emblem on the ring, the lion encircled by the wreath, a design steeped in history and meaning. It spoke of bravery and protection, of leadership rooted in service rather than dominance. I felt a stirring within me, a call to embody these qualities in a way that resonated with my own voice and vision. The tension between legacy and identity had not vanished, but it had transformed into a dynamic interplay, a delicate balance I was learning to navigate. I understood that true authority sprang not from mere inheritance but from authenticity and the courage to lead with conviction, even amid uncertainty. As I sat there, the ring a constant presence on my finger, I resolved to honor my heritage by embracing my individuality. To do so meant acknowledging the past without being confined by it, allowing tradition to inform but not dictate my choices. It was a promise to myself to lead with integrity, to bring my own values and strengths to the role entrusted to me. The act of placing the ring on my finger felt like a threshold crossed, a step into a new chapter where inherited authority was not a burden but a foundation. It was both an anchor and a sail, grounding me in history while propelling me toward the future I was ready to shape. I imagined the possibilities unfolding before me, the chance to blend time-honored wisdom with fresh perspectives, to honor the legacy through innovation and courage. The ring was a symbol of continuity, yes, but also of transformation, a reminder that leadership evolves with each generation that embraces it. The room, once a silent witness to my doubts, now seemed to echo with quiet affirmation. The signet ring, warm against my skin, was a tangible reminder that I was not alone in this journey. I carried with me the strength of those who had come before, but I was also called to bring forth my own voice, to lead in a way that was true to who I am. I felt an unexpected calm settle over me, a sense of readiness mingled with humility. The authority I was to claim was not a prize to be won, but a responsibility to be lived fully and authentically. It would require perseverance, courage, and a willingness to embrace imperfection. The ring's emblem caught the light again, its details sharp and clear. It was a symbol of power, yes, but also of service and connection. A reminder that leadership was not about domination but about stewardship, about nurturing the legacy while planting seeds for growth. I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. From hesitation to reflection, from doubt to acceptance. Each step had been necessary, each moment of uncertainty, a catalyst for deeper understanding. The ring was now more than a family heirloom. It was a touchstone for my commitment to lead with authenticity and courage. With a deep breath, I flexed my fingers, feeling the weight of the ring as a source of strength rather than burden. The authority it symbolized was alive, shaped by the choices I would make, the values I would uphold, and the vision I would pursue. I knew the path ahead would not be without challenges. The shadows of doubt might still visit, and the tension between honoring tradition and asserting individuality would persist. But I felt equipped to face these challenges with a renewed spirit, grounded in the knowledge that inherited authority could be a living, evolving force. The ring on my finger was a promise, to myself and to those who had come before, that I would step into this role with intention and heart. It was a symbol of continuity and change, a reminder that leadership was a journey of becoming. As I sat in the quiet room, the signet ring gleaming softly, I embraced the responsibility it represented, not as a heavy weight to bear but as a foundation to build upon. The legacy was not a script to follow blindly, but a story to be enriched by my own voice. In that moment, I understood that authority, when redefined through authenticity and courage, could be a source of empowerment and transformation. The ring was no longer just a token of the past. It was an invitation to lead with integrity and vision, to honor heritage while forging a path uniquely my own. I traced the emblem once more, feeling its significance deepen within me. The lion and wreath were not mere symbols but living reminders of strength, resilience, and the power to shape the future. With the ring firmly on my finger, I was ready to embrace my role with renewed confidence. A leader shaped by legacy but defined by authenticity. The journey was far from over, but this moment marked a turning point, a quiet declaration that I would carry forward the authority entrusted to me in a way that was true to who I am becoming. The signet ring settled firmly on my finger, its weight now a steady presence, no longer an uncertain burden but a foundation beneath me. As I rose from the quiet room, a new clarity unfolded, a shift from inward doubt to outward purpose. The inherited authority I carried was no longer a distant legacy to be feared or revered from afar. It was an active force I could wield to empower change, to shape a story that was both mine and yet larger than myself. The responsibilities awaiting me felt less like chains and more like stepping stones. I approached them with a sense of purpose that had been elusive before, a readiness to transform the authority passed down into a platform for empowerment, not just for myself but for those who would follow. The lineage I was part of was no longer a fixed script but a living narrative, one I could expand with my own voice and vision. In the quiet moments before the day's work began, I reflected on how my internal narrative had shifted. Where once I saw legacy as confinement, I now recognized it as a foundation, solid ground from which I could build, innovate, and inspire. The story I was inheriting was rich and complex, filled with strength and struggle, and it was mine to honor by adding new chapters that spoke to the challenges and hopes of our time. The ring on my finger caught the light as I moved, a constant reminder of this evolving journey. It symbolized a connection to the women before me, but also an invitation to lead authentically, to blend reverence for tradition with the courage to innovate. I understood that legacy was not a static inheritance but a dynamic trust, renewed with each generation's choices and actions. I imagined the faces of those who came before, no longer distant figures but companions on this path. Their resilience and vision were threads woven through the fabric of my own story, their struggles and triumphs, a source of strength and guidance. I was not alone. I was a link in a chain of women who had claimed their authority boldly, each shaping it in her own way. With this understanding, I felt a quiet resolve to embrace the complexities of leadership, the uncertainties, the fears, and the immense possibilities. I knew that the authority I wielded was not about perfection or control but about engagement, responsibility, and growth. It was about showing up, even when the path was unclear, and learning through action. The legacy I carried was no longer a shadow looming over me, but a light illuminating the way forward. I saw that my role was not to replicate but to reinterpret, not to conform but to create. The ring was a symbol not just of where I came from but of where I was going. A reminder that each step I took was part of a larger journey of empowerment. I felt the weight of the authority shift from an external expectation to an internal conviction. It was a call to lead with authenticity, to honor the past while boldly stepping into the future. The ring was a talisman of this commitment, grounding me in both history and hope. In moments of doubt, I reminded myself that legacy was not a cage but a platform. It was a foundation upon which I could build my own story, one that would inspire others to claim their authority as well. I saw how many women carried similar burdens and aspirations, and I felt a deep connection to this shared experience. The journey ahead was not without challenges, but I was ready to face them with renewed strength. The authority I embodied was alive, shaped by my choices and actions. It was a responsibility I accepted with humility and courage, knowing that leadership was a continual process of becoming. As I prepared to engage with the tasks before me, I felt the ring's presence as a steady companion, a symbol of empowerment and change. It was a reminder that inherited authority was not a final destination but a beginning, an invitation to lead with heart and vision. I carried this understanding with me into each meeting, each decision, each moment where leadership called me to step forward. The ring was a quiet affirmation that I was part of something larger, a legacy of women who had dared to claim their place and shape their world. I reached out to others, sharing my journey and encouraging them to recognize the authority within themselves. Together, we began to weave a tapestry of empowerment, blending respect for the past with the courage to innovate and lead authentically. The signet ring, once a symbol of uncertainty, had transformed into an emblem of strength and possibility. It was a beacon guiding me forward, a reminder that authority inherited was a gift to be claimed boldly and reshaped with conviction. With each step, I embraced the responsibility and the promise of leadership, not as a burden to bear alone but as a shared journey toward growth and empowerment. The legacy I carried was alive, a source of inspiration and strength, and I was ready to lead with courage and authenticity. If you loved the story, like the video and subscribe.